Hi guys, welcome back to another video. So, almost 2 years ago to around this time, I posted my first video on this channel. I was working on a dungeon crawler game which was with a customly made procedurally generated world. The algorithm was all me. I've decided in celebration of the 2 years and in celebration of me almost being at 100 subscribers, I'd revisit this game and hopefully have it done before I do reach that 100 sub goal. I started this project 2 years ago in GameAnchor, but this time around I decided to switch to Unity for one reason alone. And that is, money makes food, and food makes me not dead. I want to get a job at some point in the game industry, and in most companies, they don't really care if you're good at GameAnchor. They want to see your Unity and C# skills. So this can be a way of proving my skills, I should say. At least until I can support myself with either YouTube or as an indie. So I guess it's time to get started on this project. Alright, I have 1 day of programming complete, and this part was mainly just the setup. So if I run the game right now, you'll see that I have it so that I can generate a bunch of separate rooms like this in a grid fashion with walls separating each room like this. And so this was mainly just a setup time, so I created a bunch of scripts that will help me with my math and help me with the generation, and it seemed to be all working just fine. I have different classes for, let's say, the world generation, one that will help me with the math, then 2 separate classes for the cells for each cell and 1 for each room. So that's all I got done today. So tomorrow I'll be working on actually creating the algorithm that will chop up these rooms into something that can actually be navigated. So I will do that tomorrow. Alright, so I do have a lot to show you right now. Even though it doesn't quite look like it, I have made a lot of progress. So in this view here, you'll see that I can now generate some maps. These filled in squares are representative of where the player can move to and where they can access, and the rest of the grid for now is where you won't be able to go. Later I'm going to clean it up and I'm going to make it so that nothing spawns in the grid and make sure it looks fine. And even though it doesn't look like much progress, most of the stuff I've done is down here in creating the floor plan, which a floor plan is just what I'm calling this for now, but it's essentially the how the world is generated. So if you look here, I have this floor plan and it's called basic, and it has a bunch of stats over here. For instance, the room size tells me how big each one of these cells will be, so each room. The room count is 39, and that's simply how many of these rooms there are width and height wise. The wall, this is an object that determines what kind of object will be used as the wall. The player start is an object that is determined where the player starts. And then we have these 2 things right here, room void and room player start. These, if I come here, I have created rooms, and so within each of these rooms, different things will be able to spawn, like where the player starts. You can have a room which spawns a shop, a room that spawns maybe a chest, one that spawns more enemies, or a trap room, or things of that nature. So I can create these rooms here, and then when I'm actually creating the floor plan, I can add them into these rooms. I also have these weights here, which is going to be used for determining how the path here gets generated. So the normal weight is just how often it will go in any given direction. It's just essentially the base weight. The forward weight is how often it will go forward as opposed to turning. Ridge edge is a weight that is determined by if the pathing is on the very edge of the screen, so it can't, if it's over here, it can't go right anymore. So if I set the ridge edge to a low number, it'll be forced to jump back out, and instead of going straight up and down, which causes it to have this weird line effect where if it reaches the edge, you'll just see a bunch of open rooms on the edge and it'll just look weird. Intersect is how likely it is to go, a path is to go back through another path that's already been essentially activated. Then in the advanced, I have a couple of variables so far. I plan to add more stuff to all this, but the walk distance, that is how long each path can be, like from the start how far out it can go, and then the repeats is how many different paths there will be. So that was a lot of information, but you'll also notice that here all of the variables are grayed out, meaning I can't edit them or change them at all. That's because I created this panel right here called the floor plan, which I spent quite a bit of time to actually make this look nice. So in the grid, I have those two variables there for the room size and count. I have the different objects, the different rooms, and then the parameters that'll let me modify the weights, the units distance, and the repeats. And if I want to, I can come here to the name and I can create a new floor plan. Let's say I want to call it test, and I say, hey, I want the grid, I want the size to be 0. Well, there's a problem with that, and that problem is I will get an error here which will say room size must be greater than 0 and odd. So grid room size. So if I come here, this is essentially where the error is occurring, which is under grid and then room size. So grid room size, this needs to be either greater than 0 and odd. The reason it's odd is because even numbers will make it so that the room doesn't have a center point. So I want the rooms to have a center point, and that's what that's for. So if I set something like 9, I'll set the room count to 39 or 49. Room count's the same thing, it has to be odd. That's why I'm not doing 50. Let's say for the parameters, I want to give the let's say the repeats 5 and the walk distance to be 20. Okay, and then the name is test. I can just click create, and it'll create a new floor plan with all those parameters. As well as that, if I want to edit this specific floor plan, I can take it and drag it down here into floor plan, and then let's say I want to do, I decide I want a ridge edge weight of 3. So over here on the right, you'll see the weight edge is still 0, but since I put the test floor plan right here, I can click replace, and that value right here gets changed. And for some reason you can't see, my mouse is over it, but yeah, it's right there, 3. And that was just by pressing replace for it. So now, if I come here to this object generation, you'll see this has a details variable, and it's called basic floor plan. So if I take it and I change it to be this new floor plan that I created, I can run it, and the new stats will be used. And it takes a bit to generate, but that's to be expected, but once it runs fine. So if I come here, it looks really weird zoomed out, but it's going to be fixed as soon as I change it. So yeah, each room is a lot bigger. It was 9 squares big for each room, so probably a little too big. And that's also why it took a long time to generate, because it has to generate a lot of objects right now. But yeah, here is the floor plan that was created with that, with those stats. And this way I can have different levels that use different kinds of parameters so that different floors can be, let's say, generated differently than others. So this is going to make development in the future a lot easier. But that is going to do it for this devlog. In the next video, I will be going through and cleaning up this so that all the rooms actually look like actual rooms. And then hopefully after that, I'll be spawning in some objects. So until next time, don't forget to like and subscribe, and see ya.